You're not speaking to me this morning?
Don't be silly. I just have nothing to say.
Have it your way. Have you noticed this guy outside the shop?
Yeah, he gives me the creeps. I wish he'd go away.
Gabriel watches the man watching the shop. Times dated June 21st, 1993. Gabriel's eye is immediately drawn to an article about the voodoo murders. He scans it quickly.
I don't believe this. They've closed the case.
What case?
The voodoo murders case. The paper says that the police have learned that the murders were a result of an underworld cartel war, and that the war is over.
That's not good?
It's ridiculous. And what about the killers? And the voodoo angle, they never got anything on that.
I know you were into it, Gabriel, but if it's over, that's hardly a negative. Anyway, if you're that upset, why don't you talk it over with your pal Mosley?
You don't get it, Grace. Just forget it, okay?
Gabriel decides to check his horoscope, despite his disgust. Death walks close to you today. Resist temptation lest his eye fall on you, too.
Peachy.
Gabriel also spots an ad for Sam Springleton, a jeweler. Sam hangs out at the Napoleon House.
Get the hell out of here.
The figure outside does not respond.
Got a minute, Grace?
What's up?
Do you have messages for me?
Your grandmother called. She said to remind you to stop by and go through your father's things.
Okay. Do you have messages for me?
That man from Germany called again, Wolfgang Ritter. Now he's claiming to be a relative of yours.
Interesting. Can I get that phone number for Wolfgang Ritter?
Sure, I'll give it to you when we're done talking.
Could you do some research for me?
Sure, what?
I have a pattern I need you to research.
How interesting. What is it?
It's a reconstruction of the tracings they found around the murder victims. The ones done in flour and blood.
Yuck. You shouldn't carry this kind of thing around. Who knows what these symbols mean?
Well, wear your evil banishing gloves if you want, but check it out for me, would you?
I'll see what I can find out. Anything else?
I can't think of anything.
Here's that phone number.
Thanks. Drei Drachen kriegen in meinen Schlaf. Die Seele wühlen sie lebendig zum Fraß. Feurigen Atems, gespaltener Zunge, genießen sie jedes Mal.
That's nice. Kinda creepy, though. Who's the author?
Heinz Ritter. I'm not sure what it says, but I get the feeling this guy was one sick puppy.
A book of German poetry that once belonged to Gabriel's grandfather. Gabriel has always found it strangely compelling.
Well, I'm so glad you stopped by.
Oh, sorry it's been a while, Grandma.
Not at all. Give me a kiss.
Now, come on, sit down. Tell me how you're doing. How have you been, Gran?
Just fine, dear. I'm sorry I bothered you at work, but, I was hoping you'd get a chance to go through your father's things in the attic.
Don't be silly. You can call me anytime. Tell me about our family.
Who would you like to hear about? Your granddad, your father, or your mother?
Tell me something about Granddad.
Your granddad immigrated to America when he was 21. He worked his way through school, met and married me, and we had your father, Philip.
Tell me something about Granddad.
Your granddad supported me and your father with bookkeeping. Oh, I tell you what, though, he hated every minute of it. Didn't really like bookkeeping one bit. Maybe that was why he had the worst luck with jobs. Oh, the nights he'd come home afraid to tell me he lost another. And I'd tell him it didn't matter to me, but he felt ashamed, Gabriel.
Tell me.
Harrison was only 36 when he died. Your father was 8 years old at the time. Your granddad was hit by a streetcar, and it took me nearly a year to believe he was really gone.
I'm sorry, Gran.
Oh, I know you are, dear.
Tell me.
Did you know that your granddad was a poet? He was. He wrote the most beautiful poetry for me. I always thought he should have done something with that gift, but he was such a practical man. Didn't believe in chasing after dreams.
Tell me about my father.
Your father was my only child. How we adored him.
Tell me about my father.
Philip suffered from terrible nightmares, just like your granddad did. Oh, they were two peas in a pod.
Tell me about my father.
When Philip met your mother, oh, it was love at first sight. They were married 2 weeks later. Never looked at a girl seriously until then, and he looked at plenty. You have your father's way with women, Gabriel. And your granddad's.
Tell me about my father.
I wanted to just lay down and die when he and your mother were killed in that car crash when you were only 8. It was the thought of taking care of you that kept me going, Gabriel. The police say your father swerved off the road after being frightened by something. Perhaps a deer in the road, or wildcat. Your granddad wanted Philip to have a normal life. He was obsessed by that thought. He pushed Philip to go to law school, but Philip, he painted almost in a daze. He would get so inside himself when he worked.
Tell me about...
He always hated that it was Margaret's money that supported the three of you when his baby... I kept telling him, try something more cheerful, like a landscape or two, but he couldn't do it. His work was just too dark and disturbing for the public, you know.
Tell me about my mother.
Your mother was Margaret Templeton when your father met her. She came from a very wealthy Creole family in New Orleans. She was beautiful and reckless. She was madly in love with your father, of course, but I also think she liked to find her family. Since you're so interested in family history these days, why don't you go by St. Louis Cemetery No. 1 and visit the family tomb? It would be such a sweet gesture.
It's just past the Ross tomb, right? Oh, Maybe I will. Tell me about my mother.
Your mother's family refused to give her money after the marriage. All she had left was a modest trust fund from her great aunt, who happened to like Philip. The remainder of your mother's trust fund became yours when she died. That's what you used to open your bookshop.
Tell me about my mother.
The Templetons are all gone now. Every last one of them. Oh, they never wanted anything to do with us, of course. What a waste.
You know, you get prettier every time I see you.
Oh, you.
What's new, Gran?
I've been working on baby sweaters for the church bazaar. Keeps me busy.
Done anything interesting lately?
I raised you.
Lately, Gran.
Oh, you know me, Gabriel. I always got my nose poked in something.
It must run in the family. What can you tell me about Nolans?
Nolans is very southern, of course, though not as much as it used to be when I was a girl. It's gotten much more influenced by the East Coast and that California stuff. Still, it hasn't changed as much as other places, I reckon. We've always been happy here.
What can you tell me about St. John's Eve?
St. John's Eve? I remember when I was a girl, we always had a St. John's Eve Mass. The Mass was said at midnight, and we held candles. One time, on the way home, we were waylaid by a large group of drunken revelers. They didn't hurt us, but oh, I was frightened. My father was furious. We never went to St. John's Eve Mass after that.
Tell me about yourself.
Me? Surely you have something more interesting to talk about.
No, come on, Gran.
Oh, all right, dear. What do you want to hear?
What do you do all day?
You know how I love to knit and work in my garden. I also take long walks. It's the only way to keep an old body like mine from stiffening up.
You're not old.
Oh, don't be foolish. I'm older than the hills.
Tell me about before you met Granddaddy.
Well, you know I was born Rebecca Wright. My daddy owned a lot of land outside of town. We grew peas and corn and cotton, all kinds of things. It was a good childhood, but my father was very strict. He didn't much let me out of his sight.
Tell me how you met Granddaddy.
Oh, I met Harrison at a church revival. There was a traveling preacher back then, a big fella named Reverend Jim. I even remember his slogan, "Come to me to find your way." Your granddad was sitting right behind me and my girlfriend, Alma. And at one point, old Reverend Jim was flinging his hair around with his fine brimstone annex. And a piece of it, one of those small add-on do's for men, went flying off. I swear, Harrison and I were the only ones that noticed. We both started laughing to beat the band. Everyone looked at us like we were a couple of loonies. Oh, it was then I knew that he was for me.
How you feeling these days?
Fit as a fiddle, and don't you worry your head about it.
Just tell me anything at all.
I had your father when I was 22. The doctors told me I couldn't have any more after him, so I'm afraid I spoiled him rotten.
Just tell me anything at all.
I hate to admit it, but I was a jealous little thing when your granddaddy and I were younger. I loved him so ferociously, and he did attract the eyes of the ladies whether he wanted to or not.
Just tell me anything at all.
I get lonely sometimes, but I have lots of girlfriends in the neighborhood. I call one of them if I'm feeling blue.
Oh, nothing. Never mind.
All right, dear.
Oh, nothing. Never mind.
All right, dear.
On the wall are portraits of Gran and Granddad when they were young. Gabriel's inherited some good-looking genes.
I'm gonna go up to the attic, Gran.
Be careful of the dust.
The sheet-covered upholstered rocker used to be in Gabriel's nursery. It's an old dress dummy that Gran had in her sewing room years ago.
My first impression of the female form. Do I really look that desperate? I think I'll leave that up here.
It's an old dusty bicycle tire.
I think I'll leave that up here.
These old picture frames have been up here for years.
There's a lot of Granddad's old stuff in here. Might be something interesting.
A bundle of letters. Love letters between Harrison and Rebecca. More of Harrison Knight's German books.
Just what I need.
Some old clothes, including a pair of leather shorts.
Aren't those called lederhosen? What's this? It's some sort of key.
An elaborate mechanical clock, probably of German origin, is among the discarded treasures of the attic. A keyhole sits empty on the side of the clock. The key winds the clock's mechanism.
Granddaddy, you old fox.
The letter is written in German, but Gabriel determines what he can about it. It was sent from a place called Schloss Ritter in Rittersberg, West Germany. The letter is addressed to mein Sohn Heinz and signed Wilhelm Ritter. One of the reoccurring words strewn throughout the letter is the word Schattenjäger. The only other thing that Gabriel can decipher about the letter is a sense of urgency in the handwriting and in the heavy use of a quill tip, bold strokes and underlining. The back of the photo has the following written on it. Schloss Ritter, 1925.
Can we talk, Gran?
Of course, my boy. How can I help?
Do you know anyone named Heinz Ritter?
Heinz Ritter. Oh, Gabriel. Where did you hear that name?
I found a letter in Granddaddy's clock.
Oh, I promised I'd never tell you or your father, but I suppose it doesn't matter now.
Tell me, Gran.
Your granddad's name was Heinz Ritter before he came to America. He changed it to house and night legally when he arrived.
Do you know anyone named Wolfgang Ritter?
Wolfgang Ritter? Oh, no, dear.
Huh. Odd.
As I said, your granddad's surname was originally Ritter.
Why did Granddad change his name?
I don't know. I tried to ask him about his family and his life before America, but he didn't want to talk about it. He never even told me about his name change. I found out one day when I saw his passport in a drawer. Since he obviously found it painful, I never questioned him about it. But I'm sure it wasn't trouble with the law. Your granddad was the best man I ever knew.
Didn't Granddad ever say anything about his past or his family?
Only that his family was crazy and that he never wanted to see them again. He believed in some family curse. Thought that he could spare Philip and Philip's children from what he called old nightmare. Whatever Harrison wanted to spare you, though. Oh, it cost him plenty. He never did sleep well, and he would often get a far-away, guilty look in his eyes. He was wrestling with something he thought he should be doing, someplace he thought he ought to be. I don't know how he could think that he should be anywhere but with me and our child. It's a terrible way to live.
Have you ever heard of a Schottenjäger?
Schottenjäger? Schottenjäger? Oh, how odd, Gabriel. I haven't heard that word in years. My goodness, you've given me a chill. Your granddad used to say that sometimes in his sleep.
Really? Do you know what it means?
No, I'm afraid not. I asked him about it once. I don't think he answered me. Odd.
Thanks, Gran. Oh, nothing. Never mind.
All right, dear.
Well, Gran, I'd better get going.
Remember that I love you, Gabriel.
Love you too, Gran.
The Wright family tomb. Several of Gabriel and Gran's family members are laid to rest here. DeMarco reads, Harrison Knight.
Granddaddy.
DeMarco reads, Philip Knight.
Daddy. Hey, Daddy. How's it going, Granddaddy? Hey, Daddy.
DeMarco reads, Margaret Templeton Knight.
My mother. Miss you, Mom. Oh, shoot. Huh. Looks like someone left something in that vase.
DeMarco reads, Harley Wright.
Grand sister. She died young.
DeMarco reads, Merrill Planter Wright.
These are Grand's folks. I never knew them.
DeMarco reads, Franklin Wright.
These are Grand's folks. I never knew them.
Inside the broken vase, Gabriel sees a $20 bill.
Looks like it's my lucky day.
Hey, kids.
Bruno, how nice.
Gee, a customer.
Of yours? Hardly.
How's the flower business?
Well, better than the used book business, I see.
Rare books.
That explains why I so rarely see anyone in here. Are you gonna sell me that wonderful painting of yours today?
How much would you give me for it?
Oh, you're serious? You'll let me have it?
Gabriel, don't you dare sell your father's painting.
Yeah, I'll let you have it all right. How much for the painting?
Well, I could give you 100. That's all I can let go at the moment, you know. My affairs are so tied up.
Gabriel, $100 for your father's painting?
Stay out of this, Grace. Fine. It's yours.
Gabriel!
Here's the 100.
You better take good care of this, Bruno. This is not just another of your hip art pieces, you know.
Really? Well, I fully intend to make the most of its display. Though not for your sake, I'm sure. At least in my shop, there'll be a chance of someone actually seeing it. I can't believe I actually got it. Just wait until I show Sid.
I don't believe you.
It's just a painting, Grace. There are things I have to do.